And we've had these stories now, Terrence, about the IRS harassing people, going after specifically conservative groups. There was even a newscaster that did an interview with President Obama last year. It got quite a bit of play because he was pretty firm. It was fair, but he went right after Obama. Let's see if I can grab the story here. This is St. Louis reporter Larry Connors, and he just asked President Obama some direct questions about his spending, about some of his policy decisions, some of the concerns that people in Iowa had about his policies. And he said, since then, I have been hammered by the IRS. He said Obama and his people real friendly to me before the interview. Then after the interview, instead of being polite, they were cold. And all of a sudden, I started getting pushed around by the IRS. And Terrence, you're saying that you yourself have been a victim of some harassment or whatever you want to call it from the IRS. So walk us back through that. We ran out of time at the end of last segment.
Okay, recapping. We had a dissolution of a partnership due to fraud of my two partners. I turned them into the criminal division of the IRS for helping the retired director of the IRS give phony invoices so the affluent could commit tax fraud. And nothing happened. And meanwhile, I was in front of a judge, a state judge that I didn't play golf with, pay for his vacations, or snort cocaine with. So I got abused there and basically abandoned. And then I get a deep throat phone call. I wish this Benghazi thing needs a deep throat. And I drove 270 miles, and all this prosecutor would say is, we've got something you have to see to believe. And this IRS agent I sat next to in church and made an appointment with, after I talked to the criminal agents, he had hit this lawyer for $1.3 million. He'd already been audited twice, and the director of the IRS had bragged to me what he was doing after I'd turned him into the state board of CPAs. He said, hey, you ought to be on our side. This is what I'm doing for your partner's lawyer, bragging. And I'd begged my partners not to get involved, but they jumped in with both feet. And I lost basically everything through the state court system by the time that drug out 10 years, only to get this deep throat phone call and find out they'd abandoned me. So I go see the head criminal agent of the IRS after seeing the U.S. attorney. And I said, hey, I called you every 6 months. I wrote you a letter every year for 5 years. What'd you do? Well, my lawyer switched side and bought the lawyer's practice that was laundering all the money.
So what you're saying, Terrence, is that you uncovered some wrongdoing. You reported that to the IRS. You cooperated with them, and then you wound up getting audited yourself. The IRS wound up coming after you.
Not just that. I was building federal projects, so they gave me a dead man for a contracting officer. Insist you do $500,000 in extra change orders that they were never going to sign or even pay you. But yes, they abandoned me. And this agent I happened to sit next to in church had hit their lawyer. He found the fraud, and then I get a copy of the report 6 years later, and he wanted to go after the other four names. And the IRS, I don't know what they wouldn't let him. Of course, that's who I'm in front of. Those were my opponents.
Mm-hmm.
And not only they, but others, they're helping this. Back then, the joke was, if you don't want to get audited, do me a favor. And you had.
So they were holding that over your head that you either work with us, you cooperate with us, you do this, you do A, you do B, or we will bring the full power and weight of the Internal Retaliation Service down on your head.
Exactly what happened on that partnership. The partners confessed to embezzling $1 million. The judge said it was a practice the court didn't condone. The bookkeeper helping embezzled $150,000. He shocked probated her, no restitution, and then said a book from some Jesuit priests from the Institute of Family Business in Cleveland for $10.95 was fraud on my part. And so,
well, Terrence, I'm going to have to let you go because we're up against a hard break here. But okay. I'm guessing that your story about being hassled by the IRS probably could be duplicated, and we may have other callers by the end of this program call in to talk about their nightmare with the IRS. Glad to hear at 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere.
What happened 60 years ago still shapes lives in Israel and the Palestinian territories. If they want peace, they'll need to overcome the legacy of 1948.